if you're a teacher and you're trying to teach a concept, but your students have been exposed to disinformation that's adverse to what they're trying to teach, this could have very problematic consequences. Is that something that you've seen in the schools that you're working with?
So if you visit schools, and I'm sure you visit plenty of schools as well, you will realize that probably the most challenging aspect for many schools is not necessarily the big sort of foreign policy or political stories, but actually the deepfakes that may even be created by students themselves against other students. I'm not saying that every school faces that, but it is something that you encounter in some schools. Or disinformation doesn't have to be a deepfake that is spread also on social media, specifically against some of the other students in the classroom. So there's that level. If you move it one level further, then you have the political level as well. And that is something that not only affects what students, what teachers, what the school community might end up discussing or even believing in, but it can also affect, obviously, how well you can talk about issues that are very controversial, but that are still necessary in the school curriculum and in the school platform. So if you're talking, for example, about climate change, which is a topic that, at least from the schools that I have visited, is a very important one, and one that is discussed in several subjects. There is so much disinformation about climate change. There is so much misleading information about it that it's sometimes very difficult for teachers and for schools more broadly to really focus on information that is fact-based, that is trustworthy, that is reliable. Trustworthy and reliable, I mentioned both because there's a little bit of a difference there. It's not necessarily always a synonym, but in general, basically, it makes it more difficult for teachers to also guide students in a way in which they can end up really focusing on fact-based information. And I'm not just saying it's a problem with students. I've had really, really a lot of teachers approach me to say that they are also facing issues when it comes to identifying what's true and what's not. It's not just only something that you see among school students. You see it very clearly among teachers themselves, who are concerned about what kind of information they are getting and how they can then transmit it to the students in a responsible way.
So what are the main approaches that you might recommend to a teacher in that situation, particularly if they come from a non-technical background, something that's easy to implement?
So one thing that may work, and that's an initial step, is to have someone external talk about the issue of disinformation. A second element is incorporating very small bits and pieces into the school curriculum itself. So if you're talking about democracy as part of a political science class, I don't know the name of the specific class in a UK school, but let's say it's called political science and you're talking about democracy. Then instead of just focusing, or as well as just focusing on the theory that you have to talk to students about and on the concrete history of democracy, you could begin by bringing one disinformation case on democracy and then discussing it with the students and then going through the issue with the students and verifying it yourself. The third element, which I obviously tell them, and it's related to the second one, is there are fact-checking sites that they can rely on. So I guess a little bit more of advanced search could help, but I understand perfectly that teachers are not experts in disinformation. So they're not just going to come up with a viral disinformation case to then discuss with their students.